Trust. It's the foundation of every marriage. But what happens when that trust conceals something sinister? In Oak Ridge, Massachusetts, a high school teacher thought he knew his wife of 15 years until a bloody surgical glove led him to break a promise. What Nathan Blackwood discovered in his own basement would shatter not just his marriage but his entire reality. 3 bodies, surgical precision, and a wife who simply asked him to trust her. This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a descent into the darkness that can exist behind the facade of suburban normality. The grandfather clock in the Blackwood living room chimed 9 as Nathan marked the final essay in his stack. Through the bay window, autumn leaves scattered across their manicured lawn under the amber glow of streetlights. Their 2-story colonial house on Maple Street was the picture of suburban tranquility, at least from the outside. "Eleanor?" Nathan called out, adjusting his reading. "Glasses?" No answer. He sighed, rising from his desk to investigate. The basement door was locked again, 3rd time this week. Nathan pressed his ear against the polished oak, catching the faint sounds of movement below. Metallic clinks, something being dragged, a soft, methodical humming, his wife's habit when she was deeply focused. "Eleanor," he called again, knocking firmly. The sounds abruptly ceased. "Just a minute," she replied, her voice unnaturally cheerful. 30 seconds. Later the lock clicked, and Eleanor emerged, closing the door firmly behind her. Her surgical mask hung loosely around her neck, and the sleeves of her cream cashmere sweater were rolled up to the elbows. "Sorry, honey. I was organizing some files for work." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Those deep brown eyes that had captivated him 15 years ago now seemed distant, guarded. "In the basement? Since when do you keep patient files down there?" Nathan asked, trying to keep his tone casual. Eleanor tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear, a nervous tick he'd noticed increasing lately. "It's a special project. Sensitive cases. I need the space. The space has always been our shared workshop. Now I need your permission to enter part of my own house?" Nathan didn't mean to sound accusatory, but weeks of strange behavior had worn his patience thin. Eleanor placed her hands on his shoulders, her wedding ring catching the light. "I know it seems odd, but I'm asking you to trust me. Doctor-patient confidentiality extends to my workspace. It's only temporary." Before Nathan could press further, her phone buzzed. Eleanor glanced at the screen and frowned. "I need to take this. It's a patient in crisis." She hurried upstairs, her hushed voice fading as she disappeared into their bedroom. The next morning, Nathan noticed Eleanor's car gone before dawn, unusual for her Thursday schedule. On the kitchen counter sat a hastily scrawled, "Note, emergency at the clinic. Might be late. Love you." Nathan opened the refrigerator, pushing aside containers to reach for the orange juice. His hand froze mid-air. Behind Eleanor's organic yogurt sat a small medical cooler he'd never seen before, the type used for transporting biological samples. That afternoon, after his classes ended, Nathan returned home early. The house was empty, but the chemical smell emanating from the basement was unmistakable, antiseptic and something else he couldn't identify. He tried the door, still locked. In their bedroom, Nathan searched for clues. Eleanor's appointment book revealed blocked-out periods with no patient names, just initials and numbers. Their joint bank statements showed unexplained withdrawals totaling nearly $50,000 over 3 months. As he replaced the documents, Nathan noticed a receipt that had fallen behind their dresser. Medical supplies, surgical equipment, preservation chemicals, all delivered to a storage unit he didn't know they had. That night, Eleanor returned after midnight, claiming a patient emergency had kept her late. As they lay in bed, her back turned to him, Nathan stared at the ceiling. The woman beside him, the brilliant child psychologist, the loving wife, the community volunteer, had become a stranger who smelled faintly of formaldehyde when she thought he was asleep. Something was happening in their basement, something Eleanor was willing to lie about repeatedly. As her breathing slowed into sleep, Nathan made a decision. Tomorrow, when she left for her monthly conference in Boston, he would break his promise. He would discover what lay behind that locked door. The morning dew still clung to the grass as Eleanor loaded her overnight bag into her Volvo. Nathan stood in the doorway, coffee mug in hand, maintaining the facade of the supportive husband. "I'll miss you," he said, pressing a kiss to her cheek. Was it his imagination, or did she flinch slightly? "It's just 2 days," Eleanor replied, adjusting her scarf. "The symposium on childhood trauma shouldn't run longer than that. I've left some lasagna in the freezer." As her car disappeared around the corner, Nathan watched the clock. 30 minutes to ensure she wouldn't return for a forgotten item. Each second ticked by with excruciating slowness. At precisely 8:45 a.m., Nathan approached the kitchen trash can. Yesterday, he'd glimpsed something disturbing, a surgical glove with what appeared to be dried blood, hastily buried under coffee grounds. Now he needed confirmation. Carefully, he extracted the glove, placing it on a paper towel. The stain was unmistakably blood, and something else, a yellowish fluid consistent with bodily secretions. This wasn't from treating a child's scraped knee. Nathan's heart pounded as he ascended the stairs to their bedroom. In Eleanor's closet, behind her winter coats, he found it. A small safe he'd never seen before. He tried her birthday, nothing. Their anniversary, nothing. On a hunch, he entered the date her brother died, the trauma that had supposedly inspired her to become a psychologist. The safe clicked open. Inside lay a leather-bound journal filled with cryptic notations, medical terms, measurements, dates and times, and a single key with a red plastic tag. The basement door yielded to the key, revealing the familiar stone steps descending into darkness. Nathan flipped the light switch, illuminating the space he once used for woodworking. His tools had been pushed against the wall, replaced by medical equipment, a surgical table, monitoring devices, refrigeration units humming quietly in the corner. But it was the far wall that drew his attention, specifically the bookshelf that seemed slightly out of alignment with the floor. Nathan ran his fingers along the edge, feeling a slight draft. He pushed, and the bookshelf swung outward, revealing a hidden room bathed in the pale blue glow of specialized lighting. The smell hit him first, chemical preservatives barely masking the unmistakable scent of death. Then his eyes adjusted to the 3 glass tanks filled with clear fluid. Inside, each floated a human body, 2 men and a woman, preserved like specimens, their torsos bearing precise surgical incisions, meticulously sutured closed. Nathan staggered backward, knocking over a metal tray of instruments. His mind refused to process what his eyes were seeing. These weren't medical cadavers or teaching models. These were people, murdered people, hidden in his home by his wife. With trembling hands, he pulled out his phone and called the one person he knew wouldn't think he was insane. "Sophia, it's Nathan. I need you to come over." "No, I can't explain over the phone. Please, just hurry." Sophia Wright arrived 20 minutes later, her face shifting from concern to horror as Nathan led her to the basement. As a fellow teacher with a background in forensic science before entering education, she understood the implications immediately. "These are preservation tanks," she whispered, examining the bodies without touching anything. "Professional grade. The incisions are consistent with organ harvesting." "Nathan, this is beyond anything I could have imagined." "What do I do?" Nathan asked, his voice hollow. "Call Eleanor? Confront her?" Sophia gripped his shoulders firmly. "No, you call the police. Right now. These people were murdered, Nathan. And whoever did this," she couldn't finish the sentence, the unspoken implication hanging between them. "It can't be Eleanor," Nathan insisted weakly. "There must be an explanation." "Then let the police find it," Sophia replied, already dialing the number. "But Nathan, you need to prepare yourself. The woman you married may not be who you thought she was." As Sophia spoke to the emergency dispatcher, Nathan stared at the floating bodies. The woman's features reminded him of someone, one of Eleanor's patients whose session notes he'd glimpsed months ago. A patient who had supposedly moved away. A patient with rare blood type compatibility and no family connections. The realization crashed over him like ice water. This wasn't just murder. This was something systematic, something Eleanor had been doing right under his nose for who knows how long, and he had never suspected a thing. Detective Camilla Vasquez arrived with minimal fanfare, 2 unmarked police vehicles, and a forensic team dressed in civilian clothes. A 20-year veteran of the Massachusetts State Police with sharp eyes and silver-streaked black hair, she had insisted on discretion until they understood what they were dealing with. "Mr. Blackwood," she said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm, her gaze evaluating. "I understand this is extremely difficult, but I need you to walk me through everything again." The basement had transformed into a crime scene. Technicians in white suits photographed, measured, and collected samples, their movements methodical against the backdrop of horror. "When did you first notice changes in your wife's behavior?" Detective Vasquez asked, her notebook open. Nathan described Eleanor's increasing secretiveness, the locked basement, the late nights, all while watching the technicians work. One lifted a fingerprint from the surgical table. Another catalogued. Medications, anesthetics, paralytics, anticoagulants. The bodies appear to have been dead between 3 to 6 months, preserved almost immediately after death, the medical examiner said, examining the floating figures. Precision work, someone with surgical training. Eleanor is a psychologist, Nathan said defensively. She doesn't perform surgery. Detective Vasquez nodded to a technician who handed her a tablet. We ran preliminary identification on the victims using the National Missing Persons Database. She turned the screen toward Nathan. Do you recognize any of these people? 3 faces stared back at him. A man in his 30s with a friendly smile. An older gentleman with distinguished grey temples. A young woman with sad eyes. Nathan's stomach lurched. The woman, Maria Diaz. Eleanor showed me her file once. Said she was a patient with severe depression who moved to Oregon. Detective Vasquez exchanged glances with her partner. Maria Diaz was reported missing from Springfield 4 months ago. No connection to Oregon. The interesting part? She was on a transplant waiting list. Rare blood type. The other victims share a similar profile, her partner added. Vulnerable, isolated, all with valuable organ compatibility markers. The implication hung in the air. Nathan shook his head vehemently. This is insane. Eleanor helps people. She wouldn't... Sir, interrupted a technician, holding up a plastic evidence bag. We found this hidden behind the refrigeration unit. Inside was a medical credential badge. Dr. Vincent Moretti, surgical fellow, Boston Memorial Hospital. The photo showed a thin-faced man with cold eyes. Moretti, Detective Vasquez murmured. His license was revoked 5 years ago for ethical violations. He dropped off the radar. I've never heard Eleanor mention that name, Nathan said. But even as the words left his mouth, a memory surfaced. A phone call, Eleanor whispering, Vince. With familiar intensity, he'd assumed it was a colleague. As the day progressed, more revelations emerged. The forensic team discovered a hidden compartment containing surgical tools with serial numbers matching equipment stolen from hospitals across 3 states. Financial records revealed wire transfers to offshore accounts Nathan knew nothing about. We need to place you in protective custody, Mr. Blackwood, Detective Vasquez said as afternoon faded to evening. Until we apprehend. Your wife, you could be in danger. Nathan laughed bitterly. You think Eleanor would hurt me? We've been married for 15 years. With respect, sir, someone who can do this, she gestured to the hidden room, is capable of anything. As Nathan packed an overnight bag, he noticed Eleanor's desk drawer slightly ajar, unusual for her meticulous organization. Inside, buried beneath stationery, he found a burner phone. His hands shook as he scrolled through the messages. Delivery, confirmed for kidney and liver. Heart unsuitable due to damage during extraction. Next subject identified. Isolation confirmed. Proceed with acquisition on Thursday. Blackwood becoming suspicious. Monitoring situation. Will neutralize if necessary. Nathan's blood ran cold. Blackwood wasn't referring to Eleanor. It was referring to him. He handed the phone to Detective Vasquez, who read the messages with grim confirmation. Your wife isn't just involved, Mr. Blackwood. Based on this evidence, she appears to be a central figure in an organized organ trafficking operation. As they left the house, Nathan glanced back at the life he thought he'd built. The home that had concealed monstrous secrets. The marriage that had been a carefully constructed lie. One question burned through his shock. How had he missed the darkness hiding behind Eleanor's smile? The safe house was a nondescript apartment in a quiet part of Boston. Nathan sat at the kitchen table while Agent Marcus Reed of the FBI's Organized Crime Division spread photographs across the surface. We've been tracking this organ trafficking network for 3 years, Reed explained. The agent was younger than Nathan expected, with intense blue eyes and the restless energy of someone perpetually chasing ghosts. Until now, we never had a solid lead on the surgical team. The photos showed surveillance images of known organ couriers at airports, hospital staff suspected of involvement, and financial flowcharts. At the center was a question mark labeled Surgeon X. You think that's Eleanor? Nathan asked, his voice hollow. We think she's connected to Surgeon X, Reed replied carefully. Your wife has a unique position, access to vulnerable individuals through her psychology practice. She can assess their isolation levels, family connections, medical history. She targets people no one will miss, Nathan finished, the horror of it settling into his bones. Detective Vasquez entered with coffee and a file folder. We've completed background checks on Eleanor Blackwood, or should I say, Eleanor Winters. Winters? Nathan looked up sharply. That's her maiden name. According to official records, yes. But we've found discrepancies. Vasquez opened the folder. Eleanor Winters' records begin 15 years ago, right before you met her. Birth certificate, educational credentials, professional licenses, all perfect. Too perfect. Falsified? Nathan asked. Expertly, Reed confirmed. We believe your wife created this identity after leaving her previous life, a life that likely connects her directly to Vincent Moretti. Nathan's phone rang. Eleanor's number. The detectives nodded, activating recording equipment. Act normal, Vasquez whispered. Find out when she's coming home. Nathan answered, his heart thundering. Hey, how's the conference? Exhausting, Eleanor replied, her voice warm and familiar. Had he imagined a new edge to it? Dr. Fulton's presentation on dissociative disorders was fascinating. How are you managing without me? The casual question from a woman with 3 bodies in their basement nearly broke him. Fine. Grading papers. When are you coming back? Tomorrow afternoon, earlier than planned. The Saturday sessions aren't relevant to my practice. A pause. Is everything okay? You sound strange. Nathan gripped the phone tighter. Just tired. Missing you. I miss you too, Eleanor said softly. Nathan, I've been thinking maybe we should take that trip to the Maldives we've talked about. Get away from everything. Just the 2 of us. Reed scribbled frantically on a notepad. Flight risk. That sounds perfect, Nathan managed. Let's talk details when you're home. After hanging up, Reed immediately contacted the airport. She's already booked on a private charter to Grand Cayman, not returning to Oak Ridge. The conference was a cover. She's running. But why now? Nathan asked. She doesn't know we've discovered anything. Vasquez studied the timeline they'd constructed. Something spooked her, or someone warned her. That evening, forensic analysis of Eleanor's computer revealed a protected database of patient profiles. Not standard psychological evaluations, but detailed medical assessments, blood types, tissue compatibility, organ viability notes. Names were coded, but cross-referencing revealed a disturbing pattern. Every patient who'd moved away had later been reported missing. She used her psychology practice as a hunting ground, Reed said grimly. Patients shared everything with her. Medical histories, family situations, vulnerabilities. She identified perfect targets, then passed the information to her network. There's more, Vasquez added, reviewing financial records. Your wife has accumulated nearly $3 million in offshore accounts over the past 5 years. The buyers are wealthy, clients from across the globe, people desperate enough to pay for organs that would never come through legal channels. Nathan stared at the evidence of Eleanor's methodical depravity. How could I not have known? We shared a bed, a life. Professional manipulators excel at compartmentalization, Vasquez said quietly. The Eleanor you knew was real to you, but it was just one face she wore. As midnight approached, surveillance teams took position around Boston's private airfields. Eleanor Blackwood would return to a carefully orchestrated trap, unaware that her secret life had been exposed. Nathan lay awake in the safe house, remembering Eleanor's parting words that morning. Trust me, she had said. The irony was unbearable. He had trusted her completely, and that trust had made him blind to the monster sharing his home. Grey clouds hung low over the private airfield as Eleanor's taxi approached the terminal. She checked her watch. 3 hours until her chartered flight to Grand Cayman, where new identification documents and banking access awaited. The operation was compromised. She could feel it. 15 years of careful work, destroyed by carelessness or betrayal. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Drive safe coming home, love you. Eleanor smiled slightly. Poor, trusting Nathan. She'd almost grown fond of him over the years. His predictability, his unwavering devotion. In another life, perhaps their marriage could have been real. She texted back, can't wait to see you. As her taxi turned into the airfield entrance, Eleanor noticed unmarked vehicles positioned strategically around the perimeter. Her practiced eye recognized the pattern immediately. Law enforcement. She instructed the driver to continue past the entrance, watching in the side mirror as 2 cars pulled out to follow. Change of plans, she said calmly. Take me to South Station. The taxi driver nodded, unaware of the drama unfolding. Eleanor's mind calculated rapidly. The basement had been discovered, obviously, but how much did they know? Was it just local police, or had federal agencies connected the dots? Most importantly, had Vincent been apprehended? At South Station, Eleanor paid cash and disappeared into the crowd, weaving through commuters with practiced ease. 3 platform changes and 2 decoy tickets later, she boarded a bus to Providence, a temporary measure until she could establish contact with her secondary network. The bus had barely left the terminal when it was surrounded by police vehicles. Agent Reed appeared in the aisle, badge extended. "Eleanor Blackwood, FBI, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, organ trafficking, and identity fraud." Eleanor's face betrayed nothing as they escorted her off the bus. Only when she saw Nathan standing beside Detective Vasquez did her composure crack momentarily, a flash of cold fury quickly replaced by calculated concern. "Nathan, there's been a terrible mistake," she called out. "Whatever they've told you, save it for interrogation," Reed interrupted, leading her to a waiting vehicle. In the stark interrogation room at FBI headquarters, Eleanor maintained perfect composure. Her statement was a masterpiece of misdirection. Yes, she knew about the bodies, but she was being forced to cooperate by Dr. Moretti, who had threatened Nathan's life if she didn't provide access to their basement. She was a victim, not a perpetrator. "She's good," Vasquez said, watching through the one-way glass. "No inconsistencies, no slip-ups. If we didn't have the evidence..." Nathan stared at his wife, this stranger wearing Eleanor's face. "She mentioned her sister once, Josephine, said they were estranged because of a family disagreement." "Josephine," Reed checked his notes. "No sister appears in her background." "Exactly," Nathan replied. "Everything about Eleanor is constructed. But what if Josephine is real from her original identity? What if she's the one person who knows who Eleanor really is?" It took 3 days of intensive investigation to locate Josephine Blackwood, not a sister, but a former sister-in-law, living under a protected identity in Seattle. When she arrived at FBI headquarters, Nathan was shocked by her resemblance to Eleanor, the same auburn hair, but with eyes hardened by trauma. "Her real name is Victoria Moretti," Josephine revealed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Vincent's wife and surgical partner. They met in medical school before either of them had their licenses revoked for illegal experimental procedures." "Wife?" Nathan felt the room spin. "Eleanor was married before?" "Still is, technically," Josephine replied. "Vincent and Victoria, they were notorious, not just for harvesting organs, but for enjoying it. Vincent was caught, but Victoria disappeared, created a new identity." She glanced toward the interrogation room. "That woman isn't a victim. She's the architect." With Josephine's testimony, the investigation accelerated. Hospital records confirmed Victoria Moretti had been a promising surgical resident whose career ended after patients began dying mysteriously, their deaths attributed to surgical complications until tissue samples revealed traces of untraceable toxins. "She didn't give up medicine," Reed concluded. "She just found a more profitable application for her skills." Nathan watched through the window as Eleanor, Victoria, maintained her performance of innocence. He'd shared 15 years with a woman who had never existed, while the real person behind those familiar eyes had been calculating, harvesting, killing. "She was planning something involving you," Detective Vasquez said quietly, reviewing the encoded files from Eleanor's computer. "Operation Clean Slate, scheduled for next month." "What was it?" Nathan asked, though part of him already knew. "We believe," Vasquez said gently, "she was planning to eliminate the final connection to her Eleanor Blackwood identity. You." The detention center visiting room was sterile and cold, much like the woman sitting across from Nathan. Eleanor's orange jumpsuit contrasted sharply with her composed demeanor. For the first time since her arrest, they were face to face, husband and wife, stranger and stranger. "You came," she said, her voice familiar yet different, as though she'd dropped an accent he hadn't realized she'd been speaking with. "I wasn't sure you would." "I needed to see you," Nathan replied, "to understand." A faint smile crossed Eleanor's lips. "What exactly do you think you'll understand, Nathan? Some psychological breakthrough?" The moment Victoria Moretti decided to become a monster, the casual use of her real name startled him. "So, you're done pretending." "Pretending ended the moment you found my collection." She leaned forward slightly. "Although I must say, you surprised me. 15 years and I never thought you'd work up the courage to break a promise." Outside the room, Agent Reed and Detective Vasquez monitored the conversation. Forensic accountants had traced over $12 million through Eleanor's financial network. 17 potential victims had been identified through her patient records. The discovery of DNA evidence directly linking her to the surgical procedures, had shattered her victim narrative. "Why me?" Nathan asked, the question that had tormented him for weeks. "Why build a life with me if it was all a lie?" "You were perfect," Eleanor replied with clinical detachment. "Respected teacher, well-liked in the community, no close family, just isolated enough. Most importantly, you were trusting, unquestioning. You provided the perfect cover for my work." She tilted her head. "Did you never wonder why I chose you at that conference?" "You were selected, Nathan, carefully." Each word was a knife. But Nathan pressed on. "And the bodies in our basement? A temporary storage solution. Vincent's facility was compromised. We needed somewhere secure until transport could be arranged." She shrugged. "It was an acceptable risk. People died, Eleanor. You killed them. People die every day waiting for organs that never come," she countered. "We provided a service. The wealthy got their organs. We made our profit. It's just business." "It's murder," Nathan whispered. Eleanor leaned back, studying him with almost clinical interest. "You know what fascinates me? How desperately you cling to the idea that some part of our marriage was real, that somewhere beneath Eleanor was a woman who loved you." Her smile was cold. "I played a role, Nathan. Convincingly, it seems." As Nathan rose to leave, Eleanor called after him. "Operation Clean Slate. They found that in my files, didn't they? Do you know what it was?" Nathan stopped, but didn't turn. "Insurance," she said, simply. "In our line of work, loose ends are dangerous. You were becoming one." Outside, Detective Vasquez was waiting. Her expression confirmed what Eleanor had just revealed. Nathan had been marked for elimination. "We found another property," Vasquez said as they walked to the car. "Registered to a shell company connected to your wife. Local police just completed their search." "More bodies?" Nathan asked numbly. "4, she confirmed, all matching the same profile. But there's something else." She handed him a sealed evidence bag containing a flash drive. "This was hidden in your bedroom, inside a hollowed-out copy of your wedding vows." That night, in the safety of a hotel room, Nathan viewed the contents with Agent Reed. The drive contained detailed plans for Nathan's accident, a carefully orchestrated drowning during their planned Maldives vacation. Eleanor had already purchased the life insurance policy, arranged for his replacement at school, and drafted her appropriately devastated widow statements. "The last loose end," Reed murmured. "With you gone, Eleanor Blackwood could disappear forever, leaving Victoria Moretti free to resurface elsewhere with millions in untraceable funds." As dawn broke, Nathan stood at the hotel window watching the city slowly awaken. His 15-year marriage had been a carefully constructed lie. The woman he'd loved had selected him like a farmer selects livestock, for utility, for convenience, for slaughter when the time came. Detective Vasquez's phone call came just after breakfast. "Vincent Moretti has been apprehended in Toronto. He's talking, hoping for a deal." She paused. "There's more, Nathan. Fingerprint analysis from the secondary location matched cold cases from before Eleanor Blackwood existed, before Victoria Moretti disappeared." "What are you saying?" Nathan asked. "The woman you married," Vasquez said grimly, "has been harvesting human lives for over 20 years, and we believe she wasn't working alone." In her cell, Eleanor smiled at the ceiling, counting down the hours. Contingency plans were already in motion. The network was vast, with tendrils reaching into places Nathan couldn't imagine, including the very institutions now holding her. She had asked her husband to trust her. His failure to do so had cost her 15 years of careful work. It would cost him much more in the end.